Hey, what's happening out there, guys? Thank you as always for stopping by the channel. This is my review of Rocky vs. Drago, the Sylvester Stallone director's cut of the 1985 classic Rocky IV. I went to see this movie last night in the theaters as part of the Fathom events. It's now available on demand, and Stallone mentioned in the Q&A before the movie that this one took the better part of a year to craft together. So let's talk about it to see if Rocky vs. Drago can make Rocky IV even better. Now, I'm not going to waste your guys' time with the plot here. We all know what goes down in this movie. I also did a throwback review of Rocky IV some months back. I'll leave a link for it in the description below and up in the cards. But as for Rocky vs. Drago overall, I gotta say, I fucking loved it. Admittedly, I am biased. I grew up with Stallone. I certainly strap on my Stallone goggles every time I watch a movie of his or speak on his career. I grew up with Rocky IV. I love this movie, and when you love something, you come to love its flaws as well, which Rocky IV did have plenty of. So the typical question with any director's cut is, does Rocky vs. Drago improve on all the flaws of Rocky IV? No, it doesn't, but without the luxury of reshoots and only having B-roll material to work with, I think this movie certainly improves on about as much as you could realistically expect it to. I think it adds a good amount of B-roll footage here and there. It utilizes the advancements of technology to add more depth to the sound effects and more visual polish overall. The original just had this breakneck pace. This movie really does slow things down without really adding that much to the runtime, but more time is spent between the characters. So the main change, I would say, is how this movie is able to add some quiet moments between all the large, flashier sequences and montages. This gives just a bit of added heart to the characters, primarily with Apollo, but with Adrian, Duke, Paulie, and to a minor extent Drago as well, but there's really only so much you can do with him, and I personally tend to think that less is best, and to just kind of add substance to the element of the unknown as the villain for him. But I really enjoyed the added time with Apollo here and how it brought much more depth to just his overall reasoning for taking on the fateful exhibition match. The story also works in more time with the boxing commission and the setup for the fight and Rocky's relinquishment of the belt. So throughout the movie there is little small bits of connective tissue added here and there. It adds Apollo's funeral, which is just, it's just another gut punch of emotional intensity for the film. This scene really frames up a great moment with Tony Burton's Duke. So while being able to keep the main moments of the original in place, this cut is able to add more just sincere emotion to the story. In the original, it was all a bit superficial, and this movie really weaves in a nice human layer to the plotline. The sound design overall was an improvement. The sound design and the sound effects during the boxing matches was an improvement massively in my opinion. The punches sound real, they hit with impact to immerse yourself into the boxing matches, and the editing of the Rocky Drago final fight was nice and smooth. This final in the original was in my opinion the most epic boxing match in cinematic history, and with the added footage here and the changes to the editing, I think it only makes this fight epicer. If I did have one gripe, I would say Apollo's death was a small letdown in this new remixed version of it. As cheesy and blatantly melodramatic as it was, the original with the scoring and the color commentary just heightened the dramatic impact so much. The fight between Apollo and Drago was much better here, but the final moments with that melodrama just removed a little bit, I think just made the whole entire sequence hit a little bit less, but that may just be me. Outside of that, a lot of the fluff here and there is removed. The famous robot is missing. I don't really see why people have much of a problem with it, but if you are one of those people, then you will be happy to know that Sicko the robot is nowhere to be found. But all the montages are in place. You get your Robert Tepper, they're touched up nicely, the adrenaline pumping moments are nicely polished, and naturally I'll give Rocky vs. Drago 100%. This original movie gave me everything a boxing movie could as an 8-year-old, and as a 43-year-old, it was an absolute treat to see a slightly more grown-up and modernized version of a film that has inspired me for decades.